is your boy Crypto Bobby. I hope you're having a great day, great night, wherever you're watching or listening in from. And welcome to another episode, another edition of Crypto Happy Hour. I know it's been a while. Apologies for some of the delay. We'll obviously get into a lot of what's been going on for me, what's been going on for you, and a lot more. What is up, Michael? I hope you guys are having a good one so far. Can talk a little bit about what's happening with the market in general right now. Bitcoin down about 5% on the day. Ethereum down quite a bit. All the other altcoins down basically across the board outside of BTC. So we have some things to cover today, so it should be a pretty good conversation. And then as always, interacting, hanging out, answering as many questions as you guys might have, and kind of hanging out in the comments here. And what's up, Muhammad? What's up, handsome man? And hope you guys are having a solid day so far. Giving everybody a second here to join in. And want to turn it over today real quick to the sponsor of this Crypto Happy Hour. Today's episode is brought to you by my friends over at eToro. They recently opened up shop in the US, so as a lot of companies are leaving, they're coming in to service the US trader base. They actually have 10 million traders across the globe right now on eToro. And you can actually view the live portfolios of the top traders to see what they're trading, what they're doing, and engage directly with them, participate in their community. And you can view historical success, what percentage of their returns have been, and what they've done over time, what they've traded, full transparency. It's really cool. And one of the awesome features that they have coming out in the near future is the copy trader feature that they have, where you can actually copy the trades of some of the top traders, crypto traders in the industry. So definitely recommend checking out eToro. You go to the link below or cryptobobby.com/eToro to check it out. So shout out again to eToro. Really appreciate their support of this show. And as my man XRP Florida said, big XRP fan, as you guys all know of me. Hit that like button, hit that thumbs up button if you're just joining the show. And tonight I wasn't going to drink anything, but then I said, hey, why the hell not? It's Wednesday, even though it doesn't feel like it because the week's moving so damn fast. But I got myself a Montauk Summer Ale because for whatever reason, I'm a big Montauk beer fan. Literally half the clothes I own in my wardrobe are Montauk beer shirts. So that's just, whatever. And we'll hop into everything today. And obviously, guys, like I said, if you're just joining, make sure to start sounding off, asking those questions, and we'll dive into all of that as well. And if you are drinking something good, let me know what you are sipping on, whether it's beer, water, wine, coffee, apple juice. I don't really care. So we can kick things off today a little bit around the market movements. And I think, you have Bitcoin right now down about 6% against the USD in the past 24 hours, according to On-Chain FX, which, as always, is my go-to on data. Ethereum is down in a pretty equivalent manner, down 6%. XRP is actually up a little bit against Bitcoin, but down against USD. Basically, everything is down against USD in the past 24 hours. So you might be thinking to yourself, you might be wondering, what's happening right now? Why is the market down? Is there anything in particular that's really driving this? Driving this from a sentiment perspective, driving this from a fundamental standpoint. And at a high level, I don't think there's anything like sentiment-wise that's really driving kind of Bitcoin lower. I think if anything, there's a lot of kind of negative. There's a lot of things that are happening externally at a macro level that are a positive, potentially positive for Bitcoin as a whole. And we'll dive into a little bit around just your thoughts about kind of the investment stance on Bitcoin, because I do think that it is interesting at a high level. But a lot of things happening at a macro level when you're looking at negative yields, $15 trillion or whatever it is in negative yield. A lot of other kind of components that are happening with Trump, with just the global economy at large. The Federal Reserve tweets about the Federal Reserve today. A lot of crazy things that are going on right now with Trump, the U.S. economy, the global economy. It's things seem like they're at this kind of weird, eerie boiling point. You have every single person on the planet calling for a recession now. You have every person calling for a major economic pullback. So it leads to the point of, if everybody expects something to happen, is it actually going to happen? Who knows? But when I look at that and I kind of think about everything here, you have Bitcoin, and a lot of people point to Bitcoin as this, fantastic global macro hedge. You have it. A couple people have called this the schmuck insurance. I think I forget. I think it was Chamath, formerly of Facebook, if I remember. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of his last name, so I'm not even going to try. Chamath P. But you have Chamath, who I think really coined the term previously about Bitcoin being schmuck insurance. And Mark Yusko said that recently as well from Morgan Creek Digital. Bitcoin could very much be schmuck insurance, especially when you have the things that are happening right now at that macro level, all the craziness that's happening. You have basically the Federal Reserve treating this kind of just current environment with the same way that they did in 2008, 2009, which is a little crazy. And it would make sense logically for Bitcoin to be a really solid hedge because it doesn't have, it's not affected at a high level. The supply schedule and what happens with Bitcoin is not affected by the Federal Reserve or anything that happens with the EU or China or trade tensions, whatever it is. The supply schedule is the supply schedule. So you have that going on, and when you look at that, I think that Bitcoin is that kind of logical. Bitcoin is potentially one of those logical hedges as quote unquote digital gold, but you also have to think of kind of what's the counter argument if the economy is really falling to the shitter, if everything is collapsing, if the world is going to hell in a handbasket like everybody's calling for right now, if things are about to implode, are people really going to put their assets into what a lot of people still consider to be magic internet money? And that, I think, is the big question. I do think that the macro environment is setting things up to be really positive for Bitcoin and negative for a lot of other things in the world, negative for a lot of other assets. I mean, you can look across the board just at like the frothiness of the market, and I think a lot of things in particular are pretty messed up. So I do think Bitcoin is in a really interesting position. And we're also seeing, obviously, the divergence between Bitcoin and altcoins, and how that pairs out, how that ends up panning out in the future, I think will be something that obviously is going to be I'm sure a lot of you are going to be watching and keeping a close eye on. RC Phantom says a couple different things. So there's a couple interesting comments here. RC Phantom is drinking Miller Lite. I'm actually a Miller High Life guy myself over Miller Lite. Champagne and beers, all that jazz. Being in Brooklyn, for whatever reason, Miller High Life is like the go-to hipster beer, and I kind of love it. So that's Miller High Life is my jam. But RC Phantom says, can't DCA anymore. My Coinbase says my bank doesn't allow purchases. WTF? That might be an individual bank thing. I would check that out. I would also check out Square in the Cash App. I don't know what you're DCAing in. I don't know what your dollar cost averaging into, but I also hooked up a Square Cash App account, and you can buy Bitcoin directly. You just have to manually set the reminders because I don't think there are recurring buys right now with Square. But if you want to do it manually, you can do that. It might be an issue with your bank and maybe not on Coinbase's end, probably not on Coinbase's end. I would say one complaint that I actually had and have with Coinbase, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, and I'm typically a really big Coinbase fan. I know a lot of people give them crap and have had bad experiences with them. For the most part, I've had nothing but good experiences with Coinbase. So, I mean, knock on wood, that's kind of been my experience. But a few days ago, I think it was on Thursday or Friday of last week, or actually no, earlier, but it was about 7 days ago. I was going out of town and I wanted to top up some ETH into my CDP because the price of ETH is going down quite a bit and my liquidation price is like $50 away. So I wanted to put some more ETH in there just to make sure that I lower that liquidation price as much as possible and everything's okay. And I go to withdraw the ETH from my Coinbase account, and Coinbase, I guess I signed in and withdrew too quickly. So Coinbase just delayed the withdrawal for 72 hours, and there was nothing I could do about it, which I found to be wildly frustrating. As somebody who has kind of all the authentication, all the verification, treats my account safely, the fact that I went into my account and tried to withdraw money, and they just said, "Hey, no, you can't do this for 3 days." Like, what if my CDP went busto? Then, like, I would have been really pissed. So that's something that for me was a little bit frustrating. I don't know if anybody else had that experience, but I think it's something that hopefully Coinbase can improve on. I'm sure somebody had mentioned afterwards. I think it was BTC Kyle, if anybody follows him. But I think Kyle had mentioned that if you log into your Coinbase account and like very quickly just withdraw money, they might time it out, and that was probably what happened. But like, I wasn't just going in to sit and stare at my Coinbase account. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to take my ETH and put it in my CDP, and unfortunately they said, no boy, you can't do that. And so Gordy Boy says, Bob, why is the correlation between Bitcoin and alts gone to shit? And let's see if we can pull that up. So CoinMarketCap data is typically crap, as I'm sure many of you know. But one thing that is sometimes 69 nice. nice. That's my maturity level there for you folks. But the Bitcoin dominance has done nothing but move up since May of 2018. There was obviously a massive altcoin bubble in late 2017, early 2018 that brought the Bitcoin dominance all the way down to 33%. And then you had another kind of mini altcoin bubble in March and even into a little bit into April, or actually it was into April of 2018. There was a nice little pop where a lot of money kind of cycled out of Bitcoin and into altcoins. And since then, since really the last day of April in 2018, you've had this kind of consistent bleed out in altcoins into Bitcoin. And it's due, I think, to a number of reasons. Number one, I think a lot of people out there look at Bitcoin as something that is exactly what it says it is, and it's not trying to be anything else. And you have a growing number of firm believers in what Bitcoin is, as well as a growing amount of infrastructure around investing in Bitcoin, and not necessarily as much in investing in other crypto assets. Bitcoin remains the most liquid by far. Bitcoin remains having, from an investment perspective, the most kind of investment options built out for it, especially from an institutional standpoint. And then also when you're looking at Bitcoin or Bitcoin dominance increasing, you have the fact that many altcoins out there were either outright scams or things that simply did not need a blockchain, did not need an ERC20 token, did not need a token. And that kind of realization has slowly occurred over time. If you're looking at the vast majority of ICOs that occurred on Ethereum or on a variety of other platforms, they might be companies that have great intentions. They might be building interesting technology, but the fact is, I don't think any teams have necessarily nailed "quote unquote" token economics well. Like there are minimal teams that really have a strong incentive around token economics. And if you look at those teams, I think it is mostly geared towards centralized exchange tokens and coins, because they are the only things that out there that kind of have a reason to own those assets for the most part. For most ERC20 tokens, they're utility tokens, but nobody's actually using them for the intended purpose. You look at something like BNB, yes, you can certainly argue that you might not like everything that Binance does. You might not like certain elements of their business, but the fact that they buy tokens back, the fact that they burn them when you use them for fees, there is a reason to buy BNB. There is a reason to hold BNB for a lot of different people, and that actually affects supply and demand. Same thing, like a lot of people don't like Bitfinex, don't like Tether, whatever. the stuff with Leo. Leo is also another thing where the buyback, the supply and demand of that asset, to me, is one of the only kind of clear other assets out there where it might make sense to buy it from a speculative perspective. Yeah, there's a lot of risk there associated with Tether and the NYOAG and a lot of other things there, but definitely something that I think is kind of worth keeping in mind. So Stefan Mendoza, shout out, man. What's going on? Always good to talk to you. So two things, and then they're both actually on CoinDesk here. So this is something that I think is sweet. So if you guys don't have Lolly yet, I would recommend you go to cryptobobby.com/Lolly, LOLLI. That's my ref link, but helps me out, helps you out. If you want to just earn Bitcoin back, doing it with Lolly is one of the easiest things to do. So I would recommend, if you don't have Lolly yet, use it. It's super easy. It's just a Chrome extension. You don't have to pay for anything, and you get Bitcoin back. And now they have a new partnership with Postmates. They have a bunch of other ones that have come in. You buy groceries online with Safeway, Hotels.com, Walmart. Lolly's really been crushing it with partnerships. Alex Edelman, who I had on the show before, super nice guy. They're executing really well. Like, he's done this before. They're going to do it again. This is one of those business ideas, at least in my mind, that like so obvious, so smart of them to do, and they just are nailing it right now. So I hope they continue to crush it. But yeah, with Lolly, that's definitely a big partnership, and I think it's pretty awesome, and it's cool to see them continually roll out new news, new partnerships, and have a product that you can use and quote unquote stack sats with, and do some really awesome things. And then on the other end of the spectrum too, so I tweeted about this a little bit today. Somebody else mentioned it. Let's see if I get. So if you guys don't have this one, it's kind of similar to Lolly. I've talked about this in a previous episode. But if you don't have Pay, go to getpay.com, and I have a code there. You get $5 if you use it. It's Bobby. So literally just type in the code Bobby when you sign up. But it's a free app in the App Store, and you just link your debit and credit card to the app. And anytime you spend with one of their merchants, you get Bitcoin back. So you don't even have to do anything differently. You just have to link up your credit and debit card. And they use Plaid, which is one of the most common. They use Plaid, which is a multi-billion-dollar banking API company. Like super common, well used. It's used by Betterment, Acorns, and a bunch of other companies out there. American Express, you can see here, Coinbase. So pretty legit as far as like the technology provider they use to connect to your bank. So people have had some questions about that. But yeah, I would check out Pay. Just go to getpay.com too, and then type in Bobby. And that's a great way to just earn yourself a little extra Bitcoin in addition to Lolly as well. And then, yeah, going off of that, when Stefan says Crypto Bobby will have reached Nirvana when Lolly adds the New York Jets. Well, I actually typically buy Jets tickets on StubHub, and they have StubHub, so we're good. I can earn Bitcoin back buying Jets tickets now, which is pretty sweet. But going into the other question, so I talked about this a little bit yesterday. Where's our man? So Square made a cool hire, Matt Corallo. I talked about this yesterday, and then I also talked about this a little bit in my Line of Work newsletter. If any of you guys don't read this, I'll post it in the chat here for you so you can take a look. So I'll post it in the chat. So I actually write it's a bi-weekly newsletter now. Apparently, I can actually write English on paper too, in addition to talking and drinking beer. But I write a little newsletter now about the things that are happening in the crypto space, where that involve talent, hiring, salaries, careers, that type of thing. So I called it Line of Work. Get it? I called it Line of Work, and I'll put in put in that link there, so you can actually subscribe to it if you want it in your newsletter, or you can just read it on my website when it comes out. But there were a couple different things that I thought were pretty interesting this week from like a talent perspective, and one of those things was indeed the hiring of Matt Corallo at Square. And why I think that's cool is a couple different things. So if you're not familiar with Matt Corral, he's on Twitter, I believe, at the Blue Matt. And I heard him speak at a Lightning meetup a while ago. I really liked what he had to say. He just had like a super refreshing take on development and kind of the pace of Bitcoin and what his interests were. And it was like a very non-combative, just seemed like a really genuine, nice guy. And I kind of liked his approach to things. So I was really excited when I saw he was hired by Square, and Chain Code Labs, which was his former employer, was super complimentary of it as well. Seems like they had a pretty amicable parting, which is always great to see. But the reason I think this is cool too, because Square, if you're not familiar with Square, they're a multi-billion-dollar company. They do over $3 billion in revenue a year. A lot of that with their point of sale system. If you're in the US and you ever swipe your credit card at a coffee shop, whatever, Square probably powers a good amount of that now. So they have this massive business, and then they have this tiny, tiny little piece of the pie that's Bitcoin related with a Square Cash App that they've built, where you have the Cash App and you can buy Bitcoin through the Square Cash App. People have started to do that more and more often. They like the service that they get, so they have a good time. Peace, Shooter McGavin. Thanks for joining in on Twitch, brother. Take it easy, man. So they have the Square Cash App, and why I think it's cool that they kind of have why their approach is interesting, why their approach is cool, is because they have this massive business. They don't necessarily need to rush into things. They don't need to rush into adding a bunch of assets. They don't need to do anything that might compromise their morals or do anything for the sake of a profit or pleasing investors, because their entire business is built on crypto, or get a ton of pressure when things go bad with the market, because they're basically insulated from the market, because it's kind of a small arm of Square. They can move slowly, move intentionally, play the long game, which I think is a different approach than most of the crypto companies, because you have all these crypto companies that are in this like head-to-head competition. A lot of them have VC investors. I'm sure they're getting a ton of pressure from investors. Maybe they're trying to go public at some point in time, whatever it might be. It's a very competitive environment, and they might do things that other people in the industry might not agree with. Maybe their own employees don't even agree with it, but they're trying to just stay as competitive as possible. And Square can kind of let other people make mistakes while they move slowly and intentionally. And so, in addition to that, too, one of the other cool things that I saw, or that I thought in the newsletter, and haven't really talked about on the channel at all yet, but if you guys are familiar with Blockstack, so Blockstack is a platform that allows app developers to build on top of it. Pretty interesting stuff. They also have their token approved by the SEC, or their token offering approved by the SEC for unaccredited investors. They spent a lot of money, worked with a lot of lawyers so that unaccredited investors could buy the Stacks token. But outside of that, they had something that I thought was pretty interesting, where they just partnered recently with Lambda School. So if you guys haven't seen Lambda School, their CEO is always all over Twitter. And Lambda School is a coding bootcamp. And instead of people paying for the bootcamp, instead of you having to pay money and travel to a place, you can participate in Lambda through an income share agreement, meaning they get a percentage of your future salary for a number of years based upon you getting a job in engineering after you finish the coding bootcamp. And the partnership is cool and unique, I think, because it's mutually beneficial. It solves two problems. For Blockstack, they need developers to build applications on top of on top of Blockstack. On the other end, Lambda School needs technology and something interesting for their students to kind of hack on and learn while they're with the program. But I think it's really advantageous to Blockstack because you're getting people that are really early on in their programming, in their programming careers and their software development careers, and you're exposing them to Blockstack, and you're allowing them to build on top of the platform. And it's even pretty interesting too, because Blockstack has this like app mining rewards program where right now they give away $200,000 a month to the top apps that are listed in their app store, and they're, I think, moving that up to like $1 million. So if you are a student, you're developing in Lambda School, and you build an app that all of a sudden rises to the top and you start making whatever it is, $10, $15, $20,000 a month, $5,000 a month, who knows, but making money in Stacks tokens through that, that might be something where, hey, there all of a sudden you just have this feeder program. So I think it's a really interesting way for them to kind of kickstart the network and also get in early while they have these people doing this. So yeah, I would definitely check out the newsletter if you don't check it out. I put a link to it. In the comments, and then yeah, if you guys have any questions about proof of work as well, line of work and proof of talent, I'm getting all mixed up of my own company. But if you have any questions about proof of talent, I was happy to answer those too. But yeah, it's been super fun building. So Stefan Mendoza mentions, what are your thoughts on Coinbase acquiring Xapo? Good and bad. IMO, in Stefan's opinion, good and bad. They're a somewhat trusted custodian, so better business for them, but also more centralization of the coins. So we can see if we can pull that up. For those of you who don't know who Xapo is, if you've been in the industry, holy crap, it is pouring rain in New York right now. I just looked out my window and it's pouring. And it wasn't a second ago. Sorry. But for those of you who don't know Xapo, they are one of the most, I would say, like well-respected companies in the Bitcoin space. They are like the OG of Bitcoin custody. They have been around since 2013. Wences Casares, who was one of the most like well-known and earliest Bitcoin entrepreneurs, or like earliest like established legit like real operator, not like 22-year-old kid who had no idea what he was doing but struck lightning because Bitcoin crushed it. I mean, Wences Casares struck lightning with Bitcoin for sure, but he had struck lightning previously. He was an entrepreneur who had success building other businesses. So Xapo's super legit. Let's see if we can actually pull up to. So you can see here too, if we pull this up, the title of this, it's a Quartz article from 2017, the secret Swiss mountain bunker where millionaires stash their Bitcoin. And that was a Xapo Swiss vault. So literally in an indoor vault in the middle of nowhere, and like a former like nuclear silo was where they kind of secured their Bitcoin. And the custody business that they had was actually acquired by Coinbase. So I believe it was they brought over, I don't remember exactly how many $1 billion it was, but if I kind of read all the way through, let's see, about $5.3 billion was being stored in Bitcoin with Xapo, and Coinbase acquired that business for about $55 million. And it's interesting for a couple different reasons. Coinbase has definitely started to grow their custody business really heavily, but custody as a whole is kind of a business that's trending towards zero. And what I mean by that is that custody, the fees at least in custody, are getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. It used to be rather expensive for wealthy individuals to store their Bitcoin, and now because of the competition, what do you do when you're competing against people? If you're, let's just say in the past, you're Coinbase against Xapo against BitGo, maybe you all have pretty similar security methodologies. Maybe you have somewhat kind of equal processes and procedures. What lever do you have to win new customers? In many cases, that's the fee. And instead of making it 0.5% a year or something like that, you might make it 0.2% or 0.25% or 0.1%. And then you just kind of have this race to zero where who can have the cheapest offering that can kind of stay in business with auxiliary products and things like that. And that's kind of where the custody business is going to. But you're also seeing that consolidation, like Stefan mentioned, which isn't necessarily great, because what happens if, God forbid, Coinbase custody somehow gets hacked? But at the same point in time, I don't want to say that I have like full faith in Coinbase to not get hacked, but I would think that the amount of money that they keep in hot wallets is so damn minimal. So I don't know. There's a number of things to think about here. Is what it is. Like, you can't really change it. I think people are a little bit upset because Xapo is an OG of the business, and there's a lot of things that people don't like about Coinbase. So some people weren't happy, and BitGo specifically had a marketing campaign around telling people, hey, you can move, if you're a Xapo customer and you don't want to do anything with Coinbase and you don't want to keep your money there, you can come on over to us and deposit your Bitcoin here, and we'll transfer for free, and we'll do it for free for a little bit. So it's all in competition. It's all people aggressively making moves in business, which is awesome. Reynaldo, what's going on? Thank you very much for that super chat, man. $5. I super much appreciate that. I can buy myself another Montauk Summer Ale with this, or at least out. This probably costs like $15, so we'll get there. But Reynaldo says, "What's up, Bobby? Hope you're great. Funny thing, I turned on my ETH miners yesterday morning and watched your ETH video in the afternoon. Stack sats. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess if you're mining ETH, you're kind of weighing way unless you're converting that immediately to Bitcoin. But yeah, I'm still pretty positive about ETH in the long run. I know there's a lot of like super strong negativity and people getting pretty angry, but I still like both. I like Bitcoin. I like Ethereum. It is what it is. I know that's passe, and you're not allowed. You have to like one or the other, and you have to want to beat somebody over the head who likes the opposite. But I kind of like both, so that's what I'm sticking with, and that's what I like. Freeman Young says this: what are your thoughts on BNB being included for Binance US? And then I'll get to Brian because he talked about Cryptopia and not knowing what's going on behind closed doors. So Freeman says, what are your thoughts on BNB being included for Binance US? And we'll take a look here. See if we can get the picture of assets that were mentioned by good old CZ. There we are. On wonderful Cointelegraph. So the tokens under consideration, none of them are necessarily a massive surprise here. So you have things like Bitcoin, which is on, obviously, I don't know why that's even under consideration. You're obviously going to include Bitcoin. You have Ethereum. I'm sure you're going to include Ethereum. To me, this looks very similar to the Coinbase Pro list. So if you want to pop over here, we'll take a look at Coinbase Pro. And we'll take a look at the markets. The market information, there are a solid number of assets that are trading on Coinbase Pro that are being considered by Binance, Binance US specifically. When I look at this, though, the question specifically was, what are your thoughts on BNB being included for Binance US? And I am personally doubtful of that. I think that there are elements of BNB's token that Binance would be, to me, pretty aggressive as far as listing BNB in the United States. It'll be interesting to watch, but I would say I feel like 90+% chance it is not listed in the United States because there are elements I feel like that make it a potential security. And if they're opening up BNB in the US, I don't think that they would be, or they're opening up Binance in the US, I don't think that they'd want to kick that off on the right foot or on the wrong foot with BNB listed there and having a potential security, or something that's as straightforward with the buyback that they have and with the just general exposure and kind of quasi-security nature of the BNB token. I would be shocked if Binance lists BNB in the United States on day one. Like, I'm really, really shocked. So I don't know if that's something that you guys agree with, what you think about, but I mean, I would love to hear it too in the comments. So I don't know what you're thinking there, but I would be pretty shocked about BNB being listed in the US. Also, though, I think that they do. Binance does have a good team. The new Binance US CEO, Catherine Cooley, is somebody who I think has a lot of respect in the crypto industry. I was actually meeting yesterday with somebody who's been in the crypto industry for a long time, runs an exchange, a regulated exchange in the United States, and was saying very positive things about Catherine, and her ability to execute. So it'll be interesting to watch how Binance fares in the US. I think it's going to be pretty fascinating to watch, because you also have to think a little bit about liquidity. So a lot of people have talked about the bifurcation of liquidity. Basically, what that means is that you are going to have one pool of liquidity on Binance, traditional Binance, normal Binance, and you're going to have another pool of liquidity on Binance US, meaning the order books for the same token pairs might not be the same. You might have a BTC to USDT, or a BTC to USDC, whatever, a Bitcoin to stablecoin token pair. You might have that or to the dollar, but you might have a Bitcoin to USDT token pair in Binance US, and you might have the same thing in Binance, but the actual liquidity behind that is going to be different. The market makers there are probably going to be different, because it presents regulatory issues if you're sharing liquidity from an offshore place to an onshore place. So that's also something to think about. I don't know how often that gets spoken about, but just because there's a ton of volume on on Binance.com doesn't mean Binance.us or whatever it's going to be is going to have that same level of liquidity. So what happens if there's not a ton of liquidity there? We'll have to see. But if anybody can incentivize market makers to bring liquidity to the platform, I'm sure Binance is well capable of doing that, and well capable of providing incentives in the structure in place. But another just thing to just generally keep in mind as you look at what's happening. So Chicago Crypto Hustler says that's weird because they have BNB at the ATMs in Chicago. I wonder how they're getting around listing it for a purchase on a cryptocurrency ATMs. So I highly doubt that Binance has anything to do with the activities that are happening at cryptocurrency ATMs in Chicago. That to me is something that Binance probably doesn't have necessarily any specific control over. And some Bitcoin ATMs and some crypto ATMs are pretty well regulated. Others are really like kind of fly by night operations, and it depends. So I can't speak to the specifics of those ATMs in Chicago, but I doubt that this sale of BNB token on a crypto ATM in Chicago is an officially sanctioned thing by Binance corporate at all. And so Brian mentioned this previously when we were talking about Coinbase and Xapo, and just my general, I think, confidence level in Coinbase from a security standpoint. And so Brian says, you really don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Could be like Cryptopia. It could, but it's not. Uh, I'll just say that. Like the sophistication, the talent behind Coinbase, whether or not you like Coinbase, the sophistication and the talent that is behind Coinbase, and working on their product is light years ahead of anything that was done at Cryptopia. Like literally light years ahead of what they've done. Granted, everything is not perfect there. It's not, everything is not fantastic. But the amount of funding that they have, the sophistication, the talent, they're Coinbase is in a situation where they have a lot more resources at their disposal to better secure crypto assets than Cryptopia did, and better kind of infrastructure built. So I would be vastly disappointed in Coinbase if they were in the same ballpark, or if they were 10 ballparks away from Cryptopia. I would be vastly disappointed. So expat ran, what's up, brother? Said, hey Bobby, the SEC has registered Securitized as a transfer agent. What does that mean for the space? So Securitized is a interesting company. I've had a chance to interact with them in the past when working at Fluidity. The team at Securitized, they're really solid folks. Carlos Domingo, the CEO, and a few other folks there. I also worked with City Block Capital, who actually issued their security token through Securitized. So it was one of their initial customers. Securitized, I think, has like 43 customers according to this, and they've helped companies raise $200 million to their platform. There are a number of things that happen behind the scenes when you transfer ownership of a security token. Transfer a security token, at least in the United States, a quote unquote a real security token is a security. It is a regulated asset, and you cannot just send those around willy-nilly in a standard ERC20 token from one person to another without restrictions. Otherwise, somebody's going to be in trouble, and it's probably either the issuer or somebody behind the token. So there are a number of things that you need to do from a record-keeping standpoint, from a centralization standpoint, and one of those things is actually recording the transfer of the stock between individuals and kind of how that works. And Securitized has gone through the process of being regulated to actually transfer those stocks. And initially, they've started off with the issuance of securities, but now they're getting a little bit more in depth and farther down the stack. So what does it mean for the space? For you right now, unless you are an accredited investor, probably nothing. But it's good to see the continued advancement of the security token industry. It's still, for me, it's really far away. Like security tokens, Securitized is probably executing as well as anybody in the security token space, but it's still, I would say, like a somewhat niche industry that most people that are watching this channel right now are not going to have a ton of exposure into. So Stefan mentioned his thoughts on Bakkt, saying initially they weren't going to allow margin trading, and then this week said they might allow margin trading. Big change in messaging with what their intentions were. To be honest, I really haven't kept up a ton of with a ton of the Bakkt updates. It's just been there's a lot that have happened, and there's a lot that's changed. So I really haven't kept up with all of it. So I can't speak too well to all the updates. It's just funny though, because I was scrolling back in time into something, and I came across an old tweet or just an old article about Bakkt, and it was like over a year ago, and they were talking about launching. They were talking about like launching in December, I think it was, of last year, or something funny like that. So just kind of seeing where we are now of looking for a September launch date. It's definitely taken time, and I think that's also what a lot of people underestimate in the space. When you're doing things by the book, and when you're doing things in a regulated manner, it's going to take a lot of time to move things forward. And most people don't like that. Most people are impatient, but it is what it is. Saul logging back in after 1.5 years. Welcome back. I hope most of your money was in Bitcoin, because if not, you might not have much money left. But it was great. It's great to see you after a year and a half. And cheers. Welcome back. Maximilian Herb says, "Hey Bobby, what must happen that you turn into a Bitcoin maximalist?" Um, I don't know. For me, I think that there can be other. I think that the space is big enough that there will be other assets that fulfill different use cases outside of Bitcoin. To me, I am most confident in Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin has the clearest use case. I think Bitcoin has the clearest path forward. I think Bitcoin has the most adoption. So in that sense, I would say I have the strongest conviction and belief in Bitcoin. That said, I also think that there could be there could be an opportunity for other assets or for other alternative, not necessarily competitors against Bitcoin, but for other use cases to get filled in the industry. Whether that's something like Ethereum or some other platform, I don't know. That's kind of where my money is. I think both Bitcoin and Ethereum can coexist. Might be really stupid of me. That very possible. I think they can coexist, and that's kind of my thought process in general. I think they fulfill different use cases, but I look at this just too in a lot of cases as like my speculative plays and the just kind of fun investing for me. So Davey mentions, can you explain what BTC maximalism actually means? I think what Bitcoin maximalism actually means is different for every person. First of all, I think Bitcoin maximalism in general is something that I think some people view as a derogatory term. Where with Bitcoin maximalism, it was something that I want to say Vitalik initially called it maximalism, and so a lot of people point back to that and say, this was something that the maximalist term was something that was created to justify the creation of another asset, in this case Ethereum, and obviously that the creation of Ethereum was very profitable for anybody involved in that, specifically Vitalik. So a lot of traditional Bitcoiners, we'll remove maximalism from that. A lot of Bitcoiners point to the creation of Ethereum and Vitalik kind of coining the maximalism term as a derogatory thing. Now, some people have kind of taken hold of it and said, hey, you know what? It is what it is. People are starting to use this. We're not going to fight the term anymore. So we'll go there. For me, what do I think like Bitcoin maximalism is? First of all, and I've said this yesterday, painting people with a broad brush it's an effort and futility. It's a waste of time for the most part. There are some people that have 100% of their money in Bitcoin, or at least 100% of their money in crypto assets in Bitcoin. They only believe in Bitcoin. They think it is going to be the path forward, and they are most confident in what Bitcoin does, and they have no interest in holding or trading any other crypto assets ever. Then you have some people who are like a kind of a vocal. There are certain people that are very vocal that are of that ilk, but in addition to only having interest in Bitcoin, they also think that every other crypto asset is a scam, or is bad, and anybody who disagrees with their thesis on Bitcoin is a bad person that must be silenced, or whatever it might be. There are basically, I think, like when you think about Bitcoin maximalism, it's somebody who is 100% into Bitcoin, and only likes Bitcoin. There are different flavors of Bitcoiners. Some people are maybe a little bit like more extreme in their views than others. It doesn't mean anybody's right or wrong, but like for me, I mean, that's it. It is what it is. Like everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's wrong. Some people are more outspoken than others. Some people have a larger platform to portray those views to, so it just kind of gets spread out. I also think the third class of people that are quote unquote maximalists, and this is the worst to me. This is the worst class of maximalists, is the kind of the wrecked altcoin buyer, and the person that hops from ship to ship to ship, and they bought altcoins and they got their faces ripped off, and now they're the Bitcoin heroes. And I take some issue to that, because I think there are some people out there that try to pretend like they never did what they did, and now they're like, I'm in this Bitcoin maximalist camp and I'm safe and you can't hurt me here. And then there are just the true OGs that have kind of always been into this stuff and have kind of been standing up for it. But like there's definitely an element now of fake maximalism from some people, because I do think it is the cool thing to do. Like I think in 2017, I think in 2017 there was a time, or like, I mean, previously, but like 2017 was definitely a time where like Bitcoin maximalism was in the minority, because you had to be very principled to not be making money on shitcoin pumps. Like altcoins were pumping through the roof. Crazy things were happening. People are making 5, 10x's on ICOs, making a ton of money. You basically had to have like really, really strong principles and saying, you know what, I don't agree with this stuff. I think these are illegal security offerings. I think they're a scam. I think I think retail investors need to wrecked off this, whatever it is. But certain Bitcoin investors were like, you know what, I don't agree with this stuff. I want to stay away from it. And I'm going to go through that, and I'm not going to touch it, and I'm going to call this stuff out. And there are a lot of vocal people that were vocal back then, and they're still vocal now. And to them, I have every single bit of respect. There are also, like I said, there are some people that played around and made money in altcoins, and then like lost a little bit of money, and now now that altcoin investing or shitcoin investing isn't cool or the hot thing to do, now they're all Mr. kind of Bitcoin maximalism, and those are the types of like people that I have like less respect for personally. But I think those are also the types of people that if I guess it's a pretty big if now, it feels like a pretty big if there ever is a comeback of alternative cryptocurrencies, they'd probably be right back in there trying to buy the top and then also getting wrecked again. So LaRue says something and says Bitcoin maximalism equals you have a big bag of Bitcoin and you want it to ultimately be worth a lot more than you bought it at. I mean, I think that's every bag holder in the crypto space. That it self-describes every person that owns an asset in the crypto world. It can be Bitcoin maximalism, that can be Ethereum, that could be XRP, that could be Ren, that could be Chainlink, that could be anything. It's anybody who's super vocal about their asset, and they want to run around and at some point in time sell for more than they bought it for. So Reynaldo, thanks again for the super chat, man. Appreciate it. If you guys have anything that absolutely must be answered, throw it in the super chat and I'll get to it. But Reynaldo mentions, what are your thoughts on Raven lately? Ravencoin. I haven't looked into Ravencoin much recently. Interestingly, as you bring that up, it was on we see Binance considering an asset for launch in the US. I personally wouldn't doubt if Raven is one of the ones that gets listed in the US. That wouldn't surprise me. Mostly because Raven had a pretty fair launch. I would consider Raven's launch to be fairly fair. Fairly fair. That makes no sense, right? But fairly fair. Because it wasn't like a pre-mine. It wasn't an ICO. It was a fair launch, proof of work crypto. But outside of that, like I don't really foresee anybody. Like for me, Ravencoin is competitive with Securitized and these type of guys. Like if you're looking at the security token industry, I would bet on Securitized over betting on Raven. Like 10 times out of 10, 11 times out of 10, 100 times out of 10, I would bet on a company like Securitized that has centralized leadership and can get things approved and can execute and can handle business development. I would bet on them having success in the security token space, in the asset tokenization space, over Ravencoin. That would be my take. Andrew Rivers says, seriously, what happened to the Verge army? Used to be so strong. They spent all their money on the old Pornhub partnership. It was very fruitful, but they spent all their money there. So expat Ron said T0 just added a Raven. I'm still like I said, the security token industry is really far away from, I think, having like mainstream adoption. Like we're in the the absolute nascent stages of security tokens kind of being publicly traded and just being demanded for that. So, you have right now things like Open Finance, which is a Open Finance network, which is a competitive applicant, or excuse me, not applicant tracking system, alternative trading system, ATS. So in securities, you have to trade these things on ATS, licensed ATSs or alternative trading systems. And there are right now 3 different ones that are registered. You have Open Finance, Tzero, and Shares Post. None of them are really doing all that much as far as trading goes. Like the volume is paltry, pretty small. So we're like really, really in the early outset of things. And I don't know. I mean, we'll see how things pan out. But I mean, Tzero adding Raven is like let's see if we could find the Tzero volume. Let's see. Customer portal. Come on, give me a demo account, boy. Apparently not. So taking a look at some of these questions just to see what's going on in the chat. Verge is the 69 position on CoinMarketCap. Nice. Would make sense with those partnerships, right? Yeah, Expat Ron says, he's got got a pretty penny on the ATS for the long run. So patience pays. Yeah, this is definitely a game of patience in the security token space because, like Stefan was mentioning before, you have Bakkt. Things are taking a really long time with Bakkt, but that's because it is a heavily regulated crypto exchange. So you have to think about that, and you have to think about the length of time that it takes to get something approved by regulators. And that is even more so right now, or similarly so with these security token exchanges, because you are dealing with the SEC, you are dealing with securities, aka the Securities Exchange Commission. So, Simon DV, I bet on Chainlink to make me rich. What do you think? I would say you should have bet on Chainlink a few months ago. I don't know. I'm not like massively. What's the market cap of Chainlink right now? Where are we at? I mean, Chainlink is worth $775 million in liquid market cap, which is pretty outrageous. Does a ton of volume too on Binance, which is pretty crazy. I don't know. I mean, I think Chainlink's already had its pump. I think if you're betting on Chainlink to make you rich, I think the move to bet on Chainlink was in a time frame before it already pulled a 500 to 1000x when it did that over the course of a year. I don't want to say you're buying the absolute top, but I also would say that there's a long way down to go. That's just my personal opinion. I do think oracles are starting to have a really, if you guys are paying attention or like really deep into the Ethereum ecosystem right now, oracles are having a really interesting discussion. But I do think that like Compound Finance. So Compound Finance released this the other day, and they open sourced their Oracle, which is a price feed. So if you guys aren't familiar with this too, like Chainlink is something that I'm sure a lot of people know just from the Link token and have seen that. But like, what is an Oracle at a high level? it's a feed from an external place outside of the blockchain. And that's the big thing that like Chainlink is trying to do, and why I think, previously and looking at it in the past, Chainlink has made a lot of sense, or really resonates with people outside of them having a massive 4chan army, is with oracles. It's a very logical use case for the blockchain. It's a very necessary and logical thing to incorporate into a blockchain ecosystem, because you need that data feed into the blockchain ecosystem. So in the case of Compound and in a lot of these other assets, you need a price feed, and the price feed comes from external places. But there are issues with oracles because things can be manipulated, things can be kind of affected in negative ways, and especially with the growing DeFi space that I've talked about in the past and kind of had conversations on. But with the DeFi space growing as it is, there have been these like oracle attacks that have happened where people have manipulated the price of, basically manipulating the price feed to affect the application. So it's something that I think oracles themselves are going to be a really big topic of discussion as the quote unquote DeFi space continues to mature and other products and platforms start to utilize, whether it's price feeds or different types of data feeds externally into their ecosystem. You're going to start to see that happen more and more often. The thing that I think you want to watch is whether or not Chainlink is what these people use, or if it's just some type of open source tool through something like Compound Finance built or MakerDAO builds or whatever. Kevin from VT says, I think alts with no working product will die off soon. I think that's an accurate assumption. I also do think so. The crypto world is interesting because there's almost a perverse incentive. I mean, there are many perverse incentives when you look at ICOs. So there are a lot of issues with ICOs in general. You basically have all this funding up front before you actually build anything. So you give somebody funding up front, like let's say you give somebody $15 million in an ICO. Give them 15 million bucks, and they have this white paper and they say, hey, we're gonna go build this. What's their incentive to actually build that once they get that money? Well, the incentives are misaligned. They already have the money, so what's the incentive? Mostly the incentive at that point in time is, number one, just earnestness and actually wanting to deliver something, which most people do. Like I think in the crypto space, there is a sense of a good amount of people are good actors and they are acting in good faith, but they participate in a system with misaligned incentives. On the other end of the spectrum, though, when you look at delivering a product, you've kind of seen it happen over and over and over again. But when you actually deliver a product, or when there is no product delivered, like let's say, okay, so you go through the process and you have $15 million. You raise it in an ICO, and I mean, this is mostly like past stuff. There aren't that many ICOs being raised anymore. But like let's say, just reviewing things from the past, you got 50 million bucks, you raise an ICO, you have a white paper. Now you have all these investors, quote unquote investors. They're not actually investors. They're people that should be using the token for its intended purpose, but they're not actually using the token for its intended purpose. They're speculating on the asset. They're speculating on your ability to actually create something. So you invested in this thing, you put your money into it, your ETH into it, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go make money. I'm gonna hold this token, and I'm gonna sit here, and I'm gonna be really, interested and curious, and watch them to develop this thing. And as you sit there and you watch people develop it, and you hear these different updates, you get excited. Typically, like that's the period where things go well for the most part. I mean, removing external market conditions from it, you have people getting excited about it. They're excited about a product release. They think something good is coming. And then when the product actually gets released, they realize, hey, either I'm never going to use this thing, or maybe nobody's actually using this thing. Maybe there's no need for it. There are a billion things that people realize, but for the most part, what happens when people actually deliver products in the crypto space is it's kind of crickets on users, and the good actors that actually were well-intentioned and wanted to build something and executed and delivered on something, built something cool, built something great, but either nobody's using it or people are using it, but the token that they created didn't have the right incentive structures in place to actually maintain the value at the best case, maintain the value of the token. At the worst case, it drops off the face of the earth. So hence why proof of buffalo chicken wrap coin is a go. Absolutely, it is no joke. I had a buffalo chicken wrap for lunch. If you guys don't believe me, let me pull this bad boy up. I'll let's see if we can. Let me get this for you. My order today was, gotta love it, here we are. My buffalo wrap. I went really wimpy today, though. I went grilled chicken instead of crispy chicken, which was not a great move. I didn't really enjoy that. But yeah, grilled fingers with the Nashville numb sauce. As you can see, I'm a very generous tipper. $2.35, 15% or whatever it was. Real hero. So Cryptophagia says ICO is superior to crowdfunding because at least investors can sell if they no longer like the project. That is I guess that that is an interesting point about liquidity. For the most part, you always have option. I wouldn't say for the most part. Initially in like 2017, there was almost instant liquidity on a lot of projects. Whereas you invested in an ICO, you put your money in an ICO, and you probably got that within a few weeks, like at the max. There were times where you had things like Sparkster or whatever it was, where somebody put money into a token, and they waited months and months and months for that token, and by the time that token came out, the market had completely changed, and nobody had any confidence in ICOs anymore, and nobody had any confidence in like Sparkster to execute. And that token was down 90% the second that thing listed, and then investors were screwed. Like you couldn't even do anything. The thing was just dead, and there was no liquidity. It didn't get listed anywhere. Like there was a time where yes, there was liquidity for these tokens, but in some cases there were definitely a lot. There were a good number of tokens where people raised money and then they never provided an avenue for liquidity, and liquidity is king. And that's also why Bitcoin is still king to this day, because liquidity is king. And if you can move in and out of positions with relative ease and low slippage, you're going to be fine. But if you are in an altcoin at the 700th position on CoinMarketCap that raised $30 million in an ICO and now trades at $500,000 market cap and only trades on IDEX for $75 a day, your investment's shit out of luck at this point in time, unfortunately. Hunter Layton, hey Bobby, longtime listener, big fan. Thank you, I appreciate that, man. Do you see XRP is sitting at its lowest it's been in 2 years? I think it could go lower, unless Ripple stops selling XRP, or yeah, basically until Ripple stops selling a couple $100 million of XRP a quarter. I don't think the XRP market is going many places. That's just my personal opinion. So Expat Run says this, when do you think tokens with actual use case and approved by regulators will be valued appropriately? So I have no idea about approved by regulators because I don't know what tokens are trying to be approved by regulators or what regulators. But let's just say this. When will they be valued appropriately? Well, that's the first question. How do you value a token? How do you value any of these assets? there is no clear, specific way to really value any of these assets outside of honestly maybe some of the exchange tokens. Like there are some ways where you can maybe more clearly run analysis on Binance in the BNB token due to volume or projected volume and their revenue and how much they're going to burn. You can do something similar with Bitfinex and Leo. You can do something similar with some of the other, some of the other exchange tokens out there. But for an ERC20 token or even for Bitcoin, how do you accurately value Bitcoin as an asset? Do you use on-chain data? Do you use there is no clear specific way that somebody can look to and say, okay, this is really how much Bitcoin should be valued at. Look at Ethereum, look at XRP, look at basically everything out there. There isn't necessarily a specific way that somebody can, that people have come together and say, this is what we're looking at from a valuation perspective. This is overvalued. This is undervalued. It's also why technical analysis in the crypto space is still like a relevant thing, because most people don't know how to value these assets otherwise. So when you don't have clear guidance from certain respects, you can look at a chart and maybe more accurately predict things. Morel, how is proof of talent going, Bobby? Proof of talent's going really well. If you guys don't know, I launched a recruiting firm in the blockchain industry. Right now I work with 8 different companies in the crypto space. Actually 9. As of today, 9 companies in the crypto space. About 7 of them in New York and a few in San Francisco and Boston. So I work with companies that are trying to hire people for their, for open opportunities, for open roles, and try to match talent that is looking with people in the space. So I'm basically a headhunter is kind of what I am. And I have a few people that I work with as well. So if you are ever looking for, right now I have 8 different clients in the crypto space. These companies have like $140+ million in funding. Most of them are VC backed, seed level, Series A, all the way up to a little bit higher than that as well. Have at this point in time over 15 positions that I'm working on. So if you are interested in working full time in the crypto industry, you can go over to proofoftalent.co. It's not .com, it's .co. But if you click on the careers page and you can submit your resume, I need to update some of the positions here as well. But if you click submit your resume here, I'll take a look and see if I have anything available. And if you have anybody, especially software engineers that are looking, I have a ton of opportunities for software engineers throughout the US. And then if you're watching this now and by any chance you are a big time quantitative researcher, have a lot of experience in basically have prior Wall Street trading experience, have a lot of knowledge around just Wall Street trading in general, and then the crypto space. I'm working with a company that is one of the coolest companies in New York operating in crypto. They build crypto trading software, and they are hiring for a head of data and research, somebody to build something similar to like a BitMEX research or a Circle research for their clients, as well as just for like external marketing. So have some awesome opportunities right now. It's been a ton of fun. And I think one of the cooler parts to me, at least, about like recruiting has a bunch of different connotations and things like that. But one of the coolest parts about me is that I get a really good like behind the scenes view of things now. Like I get to hear about what companies are doing well, what companies are hiring a lot. I also get to hear about some of the companies that are having difficulties behind the scenes that people might not know about. And some of the companies that, aren't having as much traction and people are kind of starting to leave out of as well. So that type of thing is fun for me, just to have kind of a different view of the industry than I previously had. So yeah, it's Proof of Talent has been great. So if you are by any chance looking for a job in crypto, reach out to me at any point in time. My Twitter DMs are open. My email's open, whatever you need. I get a lot of outreach, but we'll definitely try to get to it as quickly as possible. And definitely appreciate all the people there's a lot of people I've seen in the chat that I've had a chance to talk to and help out a little bit, hopefully. But yeah, it's been going very well so far. Yeah, proper call. You could shoot it over, man. Crypto bull coins. Can you sign up as a gem hunter? I don't have any opportunities right now for a crypto gem hunter. There might be a few Telegram groups that are hiring for that, but as far as venture-backed startups, I don't know if we have any opportunities there. I can look into it though for you. A couple of different people asked, are we headed for a recession? I mean, I talked about it a little bit in the beginning of the video. Everybody, so the thing about right now, it's everybody, all signs point to bad things. Like it seems like everything points to negativity. Everything seems to be pointing to negativity in the crypto space, or not in the crypto space, excuse me. Negativity in just the global markets from a macro standpoint. A lot of things that don't look too hot, but you have every single person on the planet calling for a recession at this point in time, or damn near close to it. If everybody's doing it, like if everybody's saying it, is that actually going to come true, or is this just so blatantly obvious that it's going to be negative? So yeah, something I think. I mean, if I knew if we're going to have a recession, I'd probably be doing something different. But I mean, for me, like my retirement accounts and all that type of stuff, I'm just chilling. I mean, I'm not retiring for 30 years, so I'm not too worried about it. Oh, Proper Gall said he lives in North Korea, not North Carolina. Oh, I thought it was North Carolina. North Korea? I don't even know if you're legally allowed to be watching this right now, but hey, cheers. And guys, at this point in time, I'm about to relax, get myself some dinner. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me for the past hour or so. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're listening on the podcast later, thank you as well. And if you are new to the channel by any chance on the planet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for your time. Thanks again to today's sponsor on the video, eToro. Check out eToro, cryptobobby.com/eToro. But I hope you all have a good one. Take it easy. Peace.